G'day everyone, Scott Bridie from 83 Motorsports. Well, this is our first vlog on YouTube, so I hope everyone enjoys it. We have a Facebook page for 83 Motorsports. We've put all our racing stuff up on and all our photos and videos and coverage from racing, and also we've had a lot of coverage and videos and photos of this RX-7 project we're currently building. And there's been a lot of interest with this car. I've actually been blown away by the amount of interest there is with this car, so thanks everyone for their positive comments and their interest. So that's why we've decided to start a YouTube channel and to cover things a bit better and give everyone a bit more of a look at what's going on. So basically, we're going to cover all of the build of the car, and when we go testing eventually, and also when the car's finished and finally ready for circuit racing, up to speed and ready for circuit racing. And basically we'll be running the New South Wales Sports Sedan series, which is the ultimate goal for the car. So yeah, there'll be a lot of in-car footage and a lot of good coverage there with that as well. So yeah, so basically we're a budget team, and we want to try and build a sports sedan, the best sports sedan we can for the money we have to play with. So that means we've got to do pretty much everything ourselves, and that's what we've always done. So we'll be doing all the work ourselves, and so this will give you a bit of an insight of what it's like to build a sports sedan on a budget. So yeah, we come from a speedway background, although I raced in sports sedans a long time ago, late 90s. So yeah, 100 years ago basically. So, and then raced speedway for a long time. So, but basically we decided to go back to sports sedans and then have another go. So we're building this RX-7, putting this together. And this is a long road ahead, but we're getting there, and we'll get there in the end. It'll be a really good car when it's finished. So yeah, basically we're from a speedway background, and we still have a very big interest with speedway, with the MK Nationals in particular, which is where we came from. So yeah, we'll be still going to the track and spending some time with some speedway mates and giving them a hand at the track and having some fun with them, and yeah, so we're going to get some good coverage of that as well, and then any other motorsport fun we get around to, events, whatever, we'll try and cover some of that as well, and just basically have a bit of fun along the way, and not too serious, but yeah, just a bit of fun along the way, and cover everything that we do. So anyway, hopefully everyone enjoys it, and yeah, send us some comments of what you want to see or whatever you want to see, and yeah, hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. Sports sedans are one of the most exciting categories in Australian motor racing. They look pretty wild. They look like a road car on steroids, and they've got their full body, flares, wings, front spoilers. They look awesome. Under the fiberglass skin, it's pretty much anything goes. Freedom of rules allows the backyard engineer to do pretty much whatever they like. A bit of Aussie ingenuity, which is missing in a lot of categories these days in Australian motor racing. Sports sedans are limited to a 6 litre engine capacity. Most cars run a space frame chassis, and most cars run the engine mid-mounted in the inside the cabin to move the weight back to the centre of the car. Some cars run transaxle type gearboxes. Cars like this just use a normal type gearbox and a separate diff. There's heaps of variety in sports sedans. You can pretty much turn up with whatever engine you like, as long as it's out of a road car, whatever your favourite engine is. Chevs are definitely the most popular. There's a lot of ex-NASCAR engines coming into the category now, and yeah, they're quite quick. LS motors, like we're running, are becoming very popular as well because they're very cost effective, and you can do it on a budget like we are. You don't have to run a V8 though. You can run a turbo 4-cylinder, turbo rotary, naturally aspirated rotary. Yeah, and or if you're into the old school stuff, there's still some Holden 6s and Hemi 6s and that sort of thing around. But yeah, you can pretty much whatever you want to run, you can run it as long as it's under 6 litre. So every car is built a little bit different, and so variety and freedom of rules is what's kept sports sedans interesting, and this is why sports sedans are still racing after over 50 years. First built in 1988 by Dave McGuinness in Sydney. I've actually been in contact with David, and he's pretty keen to see the car up and running back on the track again. But I've actually got the original logbook for the car, original Cairns logbook. If you have a look through it, some pretty interesting stuff in here. That there is the original photo for the logbook. So that would have been taken just before it was raced in 1988. And that's what it used to look like originally. So if you click through it and have a look around, look through it, you can see a lot of good info. It's been around a while. First race in 1988 at Oran Park. Raced at Amaroo, Eastern Creek, raced in Winton in Victoria. It's also raced a lot in Tasmania, at Simmons Plains and Barstool. But the interesting thing is it's actually raced at Bathurst as well. It raced at Bathurst in 1991. Bathurst 1991 for the Tooheys 1000 support race. And also it raced at the Australian Grand Prix in Adelaide in 1990. Support race there. So there's some big events it's been to, and it's a good track and some big events, so yeah, that's quite interesting. The original owner raced this car for about 10 years and then sold it off and changed hands quite a bit over the years, and I actually raced against this car with against the second owner of the car. That was a long time ago. That was that would have been late 90s, so I would have been a young, long-haired young 21-year-old starting out in sports sedans, and had a rotary powered Datsun 1200 back then. And yeah, so I actually have raced against this car before, which is fairly interesting. When we got the car originally, it was in a bit of a sad state. It's just a bare chassis, a set of fiberglass panels and a set of wheels. So that's all we got with it. So it's been a long road ahead just to get it to here, but we've still got a lot more to go yet. So it's been a lot of work. Looked like the car had a lot of bingles over the years, got caught up in a lot of carnage, as most race cars do, and it had a lot of repairs done to the front end, which I wasn't happy with. So I decided to cut the front off and start again, which is what I've done. I've cut it from there forward, it's all cut off and redone, and refabricated a whole new front split for it, and it was a good opportunity to go over to walkaround front suspension, just the way I wanted to go with it anyway. So it's been a lot of work, but it was well worth it. So that's the history of the car. Still got a long way to go, but we're going to keep chipping away at it, and we'll get there eventually. And yeah, it's going to be really good. So I really can't wait to get in this car and do some laps. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, we'll just do a bit of a walk around, so you can have a bit of a look at the car up close and see what we're up to. I have done videos before for Facebook, but for the updates on the car, but we haven't really done much for YouTube yet. So all the YouTube viewers will go for a bit of a walk around it, and you have a good close look at the car. So we'll start at the front, work towards the back. It's a Cortina steering rack. It's a manual rack, and then on the end we have these little fabricated tubes, which is where the tie rods would have been. And then we have a rod end on the end, half-inch rod end on the end, and then onto the steering arm. So they're HQ uprights, or stub axles, whatever you want to call them. And then we also have this machine pin that goes where the ball joint would have, down to a 5/8 rod end, and then we have a fabricated tube bottom arm. Rocker arm top suspension, rocker arms for the top, and they pivot up these pivots and then work off these coilover shocks. So that actually works quite well. It's actually a copy of an old Cortina sports sedan that I had many years ago. The car was originally built by Steve Viggers from Steve's Toy Shop, and he's probably the master of sports sedans in Australia. There's not a lot he doesn't know about sports sedans, and these are all his front suspension. These front ends are built the same as this, and basically it's a copy of what he does, so it should work okay, hopefully. I won't go into the brakes yet because we haven't quite got there with that yet. Got the LS sitting in place with the engine plates. I'm taking all the engine mounts off, just using engine plates. Eventually we're going to run a electric water pump off the front. I've got rid of the old manual pump. I've bought a Ellenbrock Victor Junior manifold to run a carby. I'm going to get rid of the fuel injection because I don't know a lot about fuel injection, and I like old school stuff. I like a carburetor that you can work on at the track, and to tell you the truth, I'm an idiot when it comes to electronics, so that just works for me. So yeah, 750 Holley. I bought that a reconditioned 750 Holley, and that should work okay. We've just got a HSV exhaust just to get it going. I'll just have to basically do the rest of the exhaust system, which will be a bit of a challenge to get it through all that. Yeah, the fuel tank, it's just a 40-litre aluminium fuel tank. We've got a Super T10, Richmond Super T10 gearbox. I did have a T56 6-speed gearbox for it, which normally goes behind an LS motor, but it was just way too big and too heavy, and I really didn't want the 15.6 overdrive on them, and I really didn't want that, so I decided to go back to a 4-speed. Picked up this Super T10, very cheap because it's got a blown third gear in it, which we'll get around to fixing eventually. I picked it up for $100 if you believe. So yeah, it was a good buy, and they're getting pretty hard to get hold of these days. And just custom bell housing adapter belly housing to go from LS to Super T10. That wasn't cheap, but here's what it is. Wheelwood pedal box, which I've got to replace the master cylinders yet, but it's all in the setup stage. We've got the steering all worked out, all done. Down to the steering rack. It shouldn't be too bad. I had a Cortina steering rack in my old Cortina. So actually the whole front end is exactly the same, it's just been slightly altered. Exactly the same as the Cortina I had, but it's actually been altered to suit the size of an RX-7, as in width across there. Now the rear end is a 180 SX rear end, complete rear end I bought that for $500 and stripped everything I wanted off it and fabricated everything else. It's a R200 diff, and they're supposedly a fairly strong diff, and hopefully it's going to handle what I'm going to throw at it. We've got our tail shaft made. It's only about 350mm long, which is made by Gibson's here in Newcastle. We've always used them for tail shafts. They always do really good work, so we always stick with them. The rear end was a bit of a challenge to put together. I had to fabricate pretty much everything. Fabricated the rear uprights, bottom arms, top arms, and actually lengthened these shock mounts to get them higher, so I get a bit more travel on the back. Longer shocks on the back than the front, so that all seems to work okay. But yeah, there's still a bit to do there. So yeah, a lot of the major fabrication is sort of done. It's just like a lot of finishing off to do, which will take forever, but we'll get there. So yeah, we eventually soon we'll be putting the roof back on the car, because there's no need for it to be off anymore. And that's the roof sitting just here. I've started rubbing it back and putting a bit of bog in it and whatever. So yeah, that'll be going back on the car soon. Get it out of the weather, and we can work around it. We don't need it off the car anymore. Yeah, it's getting there, but just have trouble trying to find the time to get out to the shed and do something. Anyway, we'll get there with it eventually, and yeah, it'll be a good car when it's finished.